Live. Welcome back to Hayters TV, the Hayters TV live football show, which we're just previewing for you here in our London studios ahead of the new Hayters TV membership system. More details of that to follow very, very soon. We want to know where you're watching, what your name is, what you think on the current footballing issues. I'm joined today by some really special colleagues, so you get to know who are the key men in the Hayters TV crew. To my left, I've got my great friend and partner in crime, Jerry Cox. He's standing in for Dan Bennett, Danny B, who's been held up, not literally, but been delayed at the Arsenal training ground. We're going to discuss the hot news there, who's fit and ready for the Arsenal return to Champions League action tomorrow night. Down my far right, we've got Sam Honky Tonks. He'll be responding to your comments, so make sure you let Sam know what you want to be heard. We'll give you a good shout out on the chat. And next to him, we've got Andrew Smith, our resident man from Ireland. And Andrew, I don't know if you know, just if you look over your shoulder there, that's a signed boot by Thierry Henry.
Oh, wow.
We thought because he's your favourite player, of course.
Not really. He was wearing Reeboks, really?
Right, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was wearing Reeboks. We didn't used to use, apparently didn't used to use his feet.
He could have wore sandals to be fair and still scored.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate the joke about the hand of Henry there, but maybe he was wearing them on his hand.
Yeah, I completely blocked that one out, yeah.
And going on about Thierry Henry, we're going to kick off on an Arsenal thing here, because the big news, as we said, from the Arsenal training ground this morning, where Danny B was down there filming, and you can go and watch that full training clip edit elsewhere on the page once you've finished listening to us talk about all things football, was the return of Thomas Partey. Now, Sam, I mean, you follow Arsenal very closely. It's quite a while since Thomas Partey played. I'm frankly quite amazed that Arsenal managed to maintain a sort of challenge at the top of the table without him. I mean, tell us a bit about his return and the other injury news coming out of the Arsenal camp.
Yeah, so obviously it's a big boost in the run-in where, games are getting more pressurised every single week as they go towards the league title, as Mikel Arteta embarks on his first ever Champions League knockout stage now as a manager, which I think needs to be stated that this is a big thing for him, not just Arsenal, where it's a real test of what level he is now as a manager, which is yet to be proven at this level. For Partey, he hasn't played in the Champions League this season, which is incredible as well. His last feature actually was coming off the bench against Man City, lofting a ball to Havertz, who then laid it to Martinelli and scored. So the last time he was involved was good. But yeah, there has been, and Arsenal, like you say, have done well to. You haven't noticed is missing because Jorginho's come in, brilliant cameos with Havertz against Liverpool as well. And then Rice has really taken that role as a lone six, with now Trossard occupying a number 10 with Ødegaard. So really the Partey is probably going to be great in the squad. I don't think he starts in Porto, but to have him now for the weeks coming ahead, hopefully, is great. Fabio Vieira was also in training, which is another option if...
Former Porto player, of course. That's
exactly.
Paid that 36 million pounds for someone who's hardly ever played football.
Yeah, which is now, he's had glimpses, but unfortunately injuries have started his career, so it would be good for him to come back. He can make a part in the running if Ødegaard comes in and out. But unfortunately there was no Jesus, no Zinchenko or Tomiyasu. So again, there's the Arsenal fans' issues with Jesus is he's just always injured, which is frustrating because, as we saw in the Champions League away at Sevilla, just a breathtaking performance. And yeah, Tomiyasu is again frustrating because it's more load on Ben White to play every single game, but he's doing a good job, and Arsenal will be glad to have some more numbers back, at least ahead of Portugal tomorrow.
Well, Jerry, you've covered the Champions League from start to finish, finals all over the continent. It's the first time Arsenal have been at this stage since 2017. I think the only member of the dressing room squad from the last time there is the photographer, Stuart McFarlane. So we know how important he is to us. I mean, how would you assess Arsenal's chances? I think they've played Porto 3 times away, never beaten them, a couple of draws and a defeat. So, it's a testing. It's one of the easier draws they could have got, but it's still a challenge for them, isn't it?
Well, it is a test, and what you'd say is the teams that obviously usually do well are the ones with the experience, and as you're saying, none of the current squad were involved last time Arsenal were playing in Champions League football in knockout stages. Albeit some of them do have experience of the bigger games and in Europe, and no more than Declan Rice maybe lifting a European trophy not so long ago. Right. So of course, there are pluses as well. And like you say, Porto are probably one of the easier draws in that last 16 at a round of 16. So I'd expect Arsenal to get through this. You know, might be a tricky one tomorrow. Draw, maybe a 1-goal defeat, but I think a draw. They could nick it, and they certainly should win at home. So I'd see Arsenal going through this one.
Yeah, and for the home leg, which isn't until the middle of March, I don't think they could have some of those players like Tomiyasu back, and he will be key, I think, because that's where they really fell down when Tomiyasu and Saliba, of course, were both injured, playing in Europe towards the end of last season. Suddenly it all fell apart once that defence fell apart. Andrew, you're no stranger to the Champions League too, with the great shadow of Thierry Henry looking over your shoulder. How do you think Arsenal are going to get on against Porto tomorrow night?
Yeah, obviously the Stadio Dragao was not exactly the most welcoming place in all of European football. It is a tough ground to go to, but I think if you look at the track record from English teams going there, specifically Liverpool, I think they played Porto 3 times during the Klopp era and they've breezed past them pretty comfortably. But as Jerry alluded to, I think if Arsenal can go there, get a draw, even a 1-0 defeat wouldn't be a minor setback, because I think they have enough at the Emirates to blow them away, to be honest.
Sam, have we got anyone coming in the comments?
Yeah, quite a few. We've got a good amount of comments coming in, so keep them coming. Let us know where you're from, your predictions for the Champions League. We got Issa from Nigeria, proud Arsenal fan, so worldwide.
We've got some of our biggest Hayters TV subscribers in Nigeria, so keep those comments in, keep subscribing, get ready for the membership coming up soon. Get all your mates and friends and family to sign up to. Sorry, Sam, I interrupted.
No problem. We've got Firdavs from Tajikistan. We've got Sammy from Congo, and he loves Hayters and what we're doing, so thank you.
Sammy.
Congo did really well in AFCON as well, so I was very, very impressed. Sam Uncho is a big Chelsea fan and is laughing off the prospect of Arsenal in the Champions League. Well, Chelsea aren't in Europe, so sorry.
Yeah, but they have won the Champions League.
But they have won the Champions League, fair enough.
Well, one of the questions I saw posed today is, are Arsenal the biggest club in Europe not to have won the Champions League?
Well, that's a good question.
You know, when you look back, you look at the biggest clubs in Europe.
Probably.
Technically, they've fallen behind Tottenham in terms of income, but they're still one of the greats of European football. Yet they've never won the Champions League.
Arsenal make less money than Tottenham.
Yeah,
every season or recent seasons.
Now they are falling behind. Yeah,
that's because of the stadium deals you've got maybe with NFL and other income. But I'd probably say Arsenal are. Yeah,
but I mean, it's one of those.
Well, is there a bigger team?
Anomalies?
Because certainly when Arsenal
PSG.
PSG, yeah, they haven't. I mean, they only
but
started
historically,
in the 60s, didn't they? I mean, Arsenal
exactly.
were winning the title in the third season, but before that, and were around when the European Cup Champions League started. I mean, when Wenger was dominating football in this country, the Invincibles team, surely they could have won. And that final when they got to the final in 2006, they won every single match, every group game, every home away. They were the form team against Barcelona in the final, and got the keeper sent off early on and really made a mess of that. And Wenger, it's not. I was about to say it's not a stain on his sort of reign as Arsenal manager, but it's the missing link that would have made him an even greater sort of success story.
And I've always said the Champions League is not necessarily a measure of the best team in Europe.
No.
It's a cup competition. You got to remember that. So you do get these complete outliers. Steaua Bucharest won it once. Beat Barcelona in the
Porto, who Arsenal played tonight.
That was Jose, wasn't it? Jose's greatest achievement before he did the mic drop before going off to Chelsea.
Liverpool in 05, they were 5th in the Premier League that year as well. So.
And Chelsea when they won it 2013.
And certain teams when they go through the knockout phases, even 2 years ago with Liverpool, I think it was Benfica, Inter Milan that we played on the way to the final, but Real Madrid had to contend with Chelsea, City, so it's right what you're saying, that it could just go either way. Like, it's not a fair reflection of who's the best team in Europe. You know what I mean?
I mean, last year it was. You can't argue that City are the best team in the world at the moment. So they're going to be the favourites, and they are the favourites. I don't know who else. I mean, what would we say going forward? Bayern Munich don't even look like they're not guaranteed to get through. 1-0 behind. I
think Inter Milan will be interesting on tonight. Last year's finalists. They've added. They've arguably replaced Onana with a better keeper in Jan Sommer. Marcus Thuram has been a really good signing for free as well. They've kept Lautaro, so I think they've got Dortmund, and Dortmund are kind of a team they could do something, but generally drop out at round of 16. So, but I'd say Real Madrid probably.
Yeah, I'd say Real Madrid, biggest. Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, and then soon to be home of maybe Mbappe as well. So
it's pretty much done today, isn't it?
Yeah,
news coming out that Mbappe, despite that strong links to Arsenal, I think. We were asking Mikel Arteta in the press conference last week, and he said we have to be in the conversation. He admitted that probably Mbappe wasn't listening and maybe already sort of tuned into what's coming out of the Bernabeu, and on his way to Madrid, his childhood team. You've seen those pictures of Mbappe as a kid. He's got a bedroom bedecked with Madrid memorabilia, hasn't he?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
No Arsenal posters?
No, I think he was wearing Arsenal pyjamas underneath his Real
Charlie
Madrid.
Nicholas.
Charlie Nicholas, I don't know, more like Charlie.
John Jensen.
I don't know if that's the right generation, but yeah. I think he had an Arsene Wenger zip-up coat.
Now, listen, talking of Mbappe, we've had a lot of conversation the last few days because Rio Ferdinand said Bukayo Saka is not at the level of Mbappe or, I think he said Foden, not world class.
Yeah.
Rio today was on the same flight out to Porto as our man James St Dennis, who's covering the game, so watch out for James's coverage tonight and tomorrow night after the game. And Rio was forced to, with a flight full of Arsenal fans, Rio had to, I think he went on the intercom, didn't he, and had to sort of pretty much restate the fact that he thinks Saka's a very good player, but still not world class. So, I don't know, is Rio right, Rio wrong?
I mean, what parameters do you determine if a player is world class? I think it's longevity, to be honest. I think if a player perform, like obviously Saka is performing at an extremely high level at the moment with the amount of output he's putting. I think there was a stat floating around that since the start of the 2021-2022 season, only him and Mo Salah have scored more than 40 goals and contributed 30 assists. So I mean, that's world class in my opinion, but it's the consistency, continually doing that over a long period of time. I think that ultimately makes you a world-class player.
And in the bigger competitions, you're talking Champions League, international, so Mbappe, World Cup finals, 2 World Cup finals, scored Champions League every year. I think Saka's very inexperienced at that level, isn't he? Even with we did that comparison last week, did Sam, didn't we, with Foden? And one of the biggest differences was the number of Champions League games and goals that Foden's got, the big and the trophies. It's 15-1 or something, isn't it? The trophy front. So I suppose what you'd say is Saka needs to get put on some really star performances in the Champions League. Yeah. And to get a couple of trophies under his belt. We've had that conversation many times about Harry Kane. He doesn't get the credit just because he has won a trophy, maybe. He's done everything else.
Saka has got an FA Cup.
Yeah, he's got an FA Cup. But, in terms of what people consider world-class tournaments and achievements.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time he's ever played in the Champions League. Yeah. So he's playing, I mean, and his numbers in the Premier League, I would say he's still too young to be considered world-class. For me, is Bellingham world class? Possibly, probably. Mbappe is just an exceptional player. As you say, he's won the World Cup. He's a grade above Saka.
He's been there since that first year at Monaco as well, Mbappe. So for me,
Saka could become world class.
Yeah, exactly. It's all opinion, really. Some Arsenal fans will say he is now just because they're comparing him to the star boys of other rivals. But for me, Saka definitely will be, just because the way he came into the club, like Arsenal were on a pit of a pit for Arsenal's level, which was like eighth. Players leaving, all sorts of upstairs is uncertain, and he's just taken on the mantle of I'm going to be Arsenal's star man from that famous tweet he did on Boxing Day where he said this isn't good enough for you fans, and ever since then he's been the star man, and like you say, he just needs a platform to showcase his ability like Mbappe had.
And Bellingham, I mean, you see Bellingham's gone to Real Madrid and he's just gone up a level, so maybe that's what Saka needs to do, go to a big club.
Yeah,
already
see what you did there. That was cheeky.
I got that one.
Right, keep it up.
But obviously Saka's dealing with the pressure, because I think media personalities and obviously us as journalists, we try to put these young players on these pedestals that maybe they're not ready for yet, like the title of being world class. But if he keeps going on the way he's going, I think he'll be okay. But he needs to move to a big club, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? What do you think, watching, folks? I mean, there seems to be loads. I can see some of the comments. I can't read them. Can you pick out any of the good ones there, Sam?
Yeah, we got Ava wanted to be shouted out. A West Ham fan from Basildon. She said in capital letters. So.
I wonder if she's a friend of Jonathan Ippel. If he's the big West Ham fan these days that I keep seeing on social media. And I think Ava and Big John are the big West Ham. I was actually at the West Ham match when Arsenal won quite easily there. So look out, Ava. Look out, Jonathan. Arsenal are on your case. What do you think about Saka, by the way? Is he world class? Should he join a bigger club than Arsenal? Is there a bigger club than Arsenal? Jerry was just asking if Arsenal, the biggest club never to have won the Champions League. I would say he is on that score, and I'd say Saka will be world class. Let us know what you think. Let us know where you're watching, what you think, and Sam will give you a name tag. Any other comments there?
Yeah, we've got quite a few. We've got, who else? Someone said...
We've got Jesse Cabella, who said, if Foden's world class, Saka's world class too. The truth is, neither are world class yet. which is probably a
Probably
good point.
fair,
They're both
yeah.
on the way. We can say that, can't we? They're very similar stats, actually.
Yeah.
Both on their way, but they're not Mbappe's level, are they? And
No.
maybe even Jude Bellingham's ahead because of the platform he's got at Real Madrid at the moment.
Yeah. Amberley said Inter are going under the radar. They look strong, so it could be a wild card. Unqualico, sorry if I've butchered your name. He said, in terms of biggest clubs not to win Champions League, Lyon up there. Maybe not the history of prestige of Arsenal have had over longevity, but Lyon maybe up there as well. Then we've got Karnesh, big fan from India, not just for Arsenal but for Hayters as well. So you'd be lucky to see James's coverage, like you say, across the Porto game. And we have interesting one from Zayad who says, "Why are you called Hayters?"
Oh, I can answer that one.
There you go.
Here we
I
go.
don't know if we can see we've got G-Man editing in the background here at the ID Studios. You can see the image up here of me. That is Reg Hayter, the great legend of Fleet Street British journalism, who started Hayters in 1955. So next year we celebrate our 70th anniversary. Big news and parties and events coming up around that in 2025. Jerry, you weren't around in 1955, even, and nor was I. Nor was I. But certainly knew Reg very well. Learned a lot from him as a young journalist.
Well, he launched 1,000 careers, didn't he?
Yeah.
Half of you go into a press box in any football ground, and rugby and cricket as well, and there'll be people there who started their career at Hayters. So it's been this great academy. Two of our young academy stars coming through at the moment over there. So it's always been a good starting point for a lot of sports journalists. And Reg really started the whole thing. So that's why we're called Hayters.
Yeah.
We're not haters. We're not football haters. We're football lovers, aren't we?
Yeah. And people often ask, who do we support? We've got a lot of people who follow Arsenal on our channel, on our page, on our platforms. We're not Arsenal supporters, we're not Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, Man United, but we support all the big clubs. We're just football
And the others.
addicts, really. And the other. We've got a Charlton fan.
Charlton, Blackpool.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And a Blackpool.
Yeah, even
I've got a
Fulham.
soft spot for Exeter as well. I don't know about you. Love the old My New Football Club sort of Exeter vibe. Wraith Rovers, the Kings of Scotland as well. We're going up to see them in April.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we cover all the football. We're going to be out in the Euros this summer. We're going to be all the Champions League games coming up and the Premier League run in. And as I said, this is really this sort of live show where you can get involved on the stream, on the comments. It's going to be soon. It's going to be for members only. So keep your eye on the page, keep your eye on the community about how you can become a Hayters TV member, because then we don't want you to be missing out on this. We want your ideas. What do you want to be seeing on Hayters TV? How can we make it better for you? Some people used to go about the microphones. I think we've largely fixed that, so you can hear the reporters as well as the managers speaking in the press conferences. So getting on the membership scheme, that's coming up very, very soon. For as little as 99p a month, you can become a Hayters TV member. We're going to have lots of live shows like this, special interviews. Our old great mate Des Kelly has done some really big interviews, some of the best names in football. Some of those clips are really funny. Look out for the opening one with Carlton Cole. There's some anecdotes which I can't even repeat on this live show at the moment. I think
coming soon,
very, 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 very soon. I'll tell you what, there's some other games this week because the Premier League title race was just getting, the weekend is just getting crazy with Liverpool thrashing Burnley, Arsenal winning. Liverpool beat Brentford, didn't they? And Arsenal beat Burnley.
It was all away wins, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've never seen a weekend like that with so many away wins.
Yeah. And Wolves even beat Tottenham.
Wolves at Tottenham.
They usually do,
Liverpool
don't they?
away, Man City away.
Yeah. And then Chelsea nearly
Yeah.
nicked it at Man City, which has sort of levelled things up a little bit, but only temporary. You've got to see Liverpool winning comfortably this midweek, and you've got to see Man City. They're both at home, which puts the pressure on then Arsenal to beat Newcastle on Saturday night.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone wants to talk about the Champions League, the Premier League race, but we've also got the League Cup final coming up this weekend too. So, any thoughts on the title race, Andrew?
You spoke about the massive win that Liverpool picked up against Brentford, but I think Klopp will be looking at the costly injuries that they picked up. Obviously, Diogo Jota, who's been absolutely magnificent since Salah departed, and then obviously got that subsequent injury. He's out. For reports are circulating that he could be out for 2 months. He might make it back for the latter stages of the season, but he's a huge loss.
He's a special player.
He's an unbelievable player, and I think he goes under the radar a lot. Obviously, Jones is out, Szoboszlai is out, Trent is out, Alisson is out. So Klopp will be looking at the Brentford game, being like, look, it was a massive win. Brentford's not an easy place to go, but the injuries that he picked up are so costly. But I think going into the cup final, I think a couple of weeks ago Liverpool would have been a little bit more comfortable, but in recent weeks Chelsea have shown a slight bit of resurgence. Obviously the performance against City was a big point for them to pick up, and obviously a big point in the title race. But yeah, I just think in a cup environment, Wembley, it's not going to be as straightforward. I think form kind of goes out the window a little bit. So yeah, obviously Liverpool going to have to show Chelsea a bit more respect, because I think a couple of weeks ago, given the fact that Chelsea were just in utter disarray, they probably thought would have been.
Yeah, I mean, can it flip that quickly? I think you two guys are going to be our men at
Yeah,
the
we're
scene
there at
at
Wembley.
Wembley Stadium on
Yep.
Sunday. So look out for the build-up to that with the press conference and the post-match too. We might even do a little live from Wembley Stadium. Keep your eye out for that. Jerry, the League Cup final. I mean, Liverpool have to be favourites, don't they? But I mean, you cover a lot of Chelsea too. I mean, they've been a bit of as Andrew said, a disarray disaster. Don't they?
Yeah, well, they're not consistent. You know, they had that little run of 3, and then they lost. You know, heavily at home to Wolves. You sort of wonder what it will take, because I thought Pochettino would have got it right by now. I thought it would take him a little while, maybe
Really?
half a season. But it's still taken a while to get any consistency. So many players have come in, and so many young players have come in, and they've had huge injury problems. So trying to knit that into a cohesive team is a difficult job at the best of times. And Chelsea is, you know, it's so high profile, and the scrutiny, the pressure is enormous, you know. So it's a tough gig, you know, getting that right. And as you say, they get these little green shoots of recovery and then have a setback. So you sort of wonder, you know, you could see from that game again at City, they are capable of putting on a performance. You think they'd be up for a big cup final at Wembley. Liverpool again, you know, they went down very tamely, didn't they, the other week at Anfield?
Yeah.
But they are capable, you know, they're a side that can produce a performance on the night. So hard one to call. I mean, I went to Wembley twice a couple of years ago for that, the League Cup and the FA Cup final. And they
Terrible games.
both went to penalties. You know, they weren't the greatest games. And we were talking about this earlier. We've done a feature on our website actually. You know, Liverpool-Chelsea used to be, there always was something about it, wasn't there? There was the Luis Garcia ghost goal in the Champions League semi-final. There was that famous game, I think Carlton Cole talks about this in our interview, which is coming up soon, because he played in the game when it was, I think it was Claudio Ranieri's last game. It was just before Abramovich bought the club. And no, it wasn't Ranieri's last game, but Ranieri was the manager, and it was just before Abramovich bought the club. Chelsea played Liverpool on the last day of the season at Stamford Bridge. Basically, the winner was going to go into the Champions League. If Chelsea hadn't have won that, quite possibly Abramovich wouldn't have bought the club, and then who knows what they'd have been. Yeah. And Jesper Grønkjær came up with the winner in that one. So that was a huge game, and I think the players were told in the dressing room, you know, if we don't win this, effectively we're out of business, you know. So that was one of the huge games. You've got the famous Garcia ghost goal. Well, it went on in Liverpool's favour, and then you had the famous Gerrard slip, Demba Ba. You know, that was. And if you remember the build-up to that game at Anfield, you know, 2 hours before the coaches arriving, there were thousands of fans and streamers and smoke bombs and flares and songs. It was like a sort of welcome victory parade before the game kicked off.
Yeah, and the scene was perfectly...
And it just went... And of course...
The scene was set from Mourinho to crash everything.
Mourinho was there.
There's a real animosity.
Probably he's one of his favourite moments in English football.
Of course,
And there's an animosity between these two clubs now, which we don't sort of think of as one of the big rivalries, Liverpool-Chelsea, but it has been so since the Mourinho era. What's your
and also Benitez, actually.
So Benitez. Of course. I mean, if you look back on just the list of results between the two ties, they are always competitive and it's always close, but it has stagnated in recent years. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest why that's happened, but I mean, I think back to the 2009 Champions League. I think it was the quarter-final. It was 4-4. 7-5 on aggregate. That's Chelsea versus Liverpool for me. You know, an incredible game of football. But as Jerry alluded to, the FA Cup and League Cup final 2 years ago.
Yeah, but we've got you know, different sort of players now. Chelsea's a very different team to the one they were before. Yeah. And Liverpool, well, they're going to have to play some of their younger players, aren't they? Because that's all they've got sort of fit.
But Nunes is scoring, isn't he? That's good.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a lovely goal at the weekend.
Nunes is scoring, but I think what's fascinating about Nunes, and I was actually at the game, the Brentford game, and I was moved up to the gantry because the press box was full, but I was actually sitting beside the legendary Ian Darke, famous commentator, and I think him and Darren Fletcher for TNT, when Nunes is running through on goal, even the Brentford fans, when he makes that thing, it's like, wait, and then it goes in, but it's just such an unnecessary finish. You could probably just pass it left, pass it right, but you could say it's a striker playing with little confidence, but he's just organised chaos at its finest. You know, he doesn't need to dink that there. He can just pass it left to right. But yeah, he has hit a good run of form. I think creating chances, yes, missing them, I think there is good in that.
I think Liverpool win this final relatively comfortably for me. I think they've got the big game players, more experienced players, despite what I just said about having to play quite a few youngsters because of injuries. With Mo Salah being the pick of the bunch there, I think they will win it fairly comfortably. I think Chelsea, we know they can perform. As you say, they're an erratic side, but there's also this narrative of Klopp's last season. Surely he can't leave England empty-handed after all his sort of success and near misses he's had so far. He's been building up. Every fan's now is doing that really annoying fist pump thing that I find a bit grates with me anyway. But I know the Liverpool fans love it. I think he's going to win this one, and then you've got a really nice build up to the end of the season where they'll still be in the title race, still going for the Europa League. Could he go out with the treble?
Quadruple still as well.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
We've got some, obviously Klopp's just spoken to the press now, where you can see his full videos on the Hayters channel as well, with our Nazira there being there at Melwood. And Klopp gave some updates on the team news, and that Salah and Nunez had no updates, so I presume that means they're okay for Luton and the final. But Trent and Szoboszlai aren't going to make the final, and apparently neither is Alisson. So I think and
Jones is out as well.
And Jones is out, ligament damage. So again, that's really that's a blow because for England, I was tipping
we were thinking of him.
Yeah. And
but would Alisson play anay even if he was fit? Because he generally doesn't play Alisson.
That's true.
Kelleher's going to start.
I think it'll be because Chelsea's keeper, I think is Petrovic, is it? Or I'm not too keen on him yet. I'm not sure on him because the last two finals was it Mendy, I think, played that FA Cup final, and Kepa obviously the League Cup where he ended up skying the penalty himself. So I think it'll be which keeper holds their nerve the most in this game.
Yeah, but Kelleher can be a real sort of match winner.
Performances.
He's from your country, Ireland. What's the view of Kelleher back in Ireland? Because he's a special talent. How can he keep being number 2?
Yeah, he's a Cork man, and he played Gaelic football. I don't imagine any of our viewers know what Gaelic football is, but it's a very fast-paced sport, and he played in goal for that, and obviously that's what made him a terrific goalkeeper. But yeah, he's been second fiddle to Alisson for some time now, and I think during the summer a lot of chatter was going around about him potentially moving, because I think he could fit into most Premier League sides. He could be their number 1, like no problem at all. But I think what Klopp realises, and what obviously the club realises, that he is a very, very, very reliable backup goalkeeper. I mean, we talked about him playing on the weekend. 2 seasons ago, he scored ultimately the penalty that set up the win, and then Kepa plays it over the bar, and he had a really, really good game that game. So yeah, I think he's a stunning backup, but I do think, given how good Alisson is, and it's very, very hard to push him out the side, I do see him moving on to a new team.
Yeah, I mean, when he speaks, does he sound happy to be number 2 and waiting for his turn, or does he want to get out of Liverpool? I think
he embraces the fact that he's the understudy to Alisson. Obviously, Alisson, in my opinion, is the best goalkeeper in the world. So to train with him every day and to learn off of him every day, that can only be valuable. And he's still young, so I think even in the latter stages of his career, his late 20s, if he goes on the side, they're going to get a top goalkeeper.
Well, I'm saying a Liverpool win, and Keller will get another winner's medal. What are you saying for the final?
I agree.
I
think so.
I think Liverpool win it by a couple goals, normal time.
I'm going Chelsea on penalties.
3-1.
Really?
We have had a couple of comments saying Chelsea might sneak it as well. Nemanja said Chelsea going to sneak trophy. Greg says Chelsea might shock Klopp. So, like you say, it might be built up for Klopp's farewell tour to be great, or it could be a farewell tour of losses to maybe go with Klopp's record. And he was losing quite a lot of finals as well. So
yeah, and football, as we know, doesn't really sort of deal in sort of fairy tales. You know, as journalists, we like to write these scripts. They say you couldn't script it, but often you try to. And just looking at the ending of Roy Hodgson's career, certainly as Crystal Palace manager.
I think it's his career.
Was he 76? Yeah. I've got so much time for Roy. He's one of the really most decent people I've come across in football. And I think he should go down as one of the great managers, looking at the longevity of his career, both abroad and in this country. And he's been an international manager too. I think he brought back a lot of credibility to the England side and the whole sort of being an English football fan when he was in charge there. And it's just sort of sad how it sort of slipped away from him at Crystal Palace. I personally don't think he was really needed to go there in the first place. I think they were building something really good under Vieira, but they panicked a bit. Hodgson came back and did really well. Maybe he should have just come in for a short period of time and then gone and brought in another sort of long-term manager. They've got this guy Olivier
Oliver
Glasner?
Glasner, which we should have a feature on him going up on our website where you can find out all about him and his past and career and stuff.
Jerry, you know, I say new, but you know Roy well, don't you?
Roy a long time, yeah. I disagree slightly about England because I think, to be honest, he wasn't a great England manager. I mean, that was a terrible.
I just mean the way he conducts himself. And I think some of the previous managers.
Listen, Roy has always conducted himself really well, and he's very likeable, and he's approachable, and he's intelligent, knowledgeable, and everything. And he's done really well at some clubs. But I think he struggled. I mean, he had a bad time at Liverpool. That was a job probably too big for him. He was never accepted, and it didn't really last. And with England, again, you know, everyone was expecting Harry Redknapp to take over.
Yeah.
And I was at the press conference where they announced Roy, and the chief exec of the FA at the time was asked about, you know, we all thought it was going to be Redknapp, and he said, yeah, we were quite happy to let that sort of charade carry on because we wanted to quietly appoint Roy in the background and make sure it was all done, and they were very pleased with themselves. England then went to the Euros in 2012, had a disastrous Euros, to be honest. If you remember,
flat.
Was that his fault though?
That was the shootout to Italy,
and they played Italy. They needed a goal, and it ended up with Joe Hart lumping it up to Andy Carroll for the last half hour. It was pretty primitive. And then they went to the World Cup in Brazil, and that was disastrous. Didn't win a game. And then the Euros in 2016, and I was there in Nice for the Iceland defeat, and watching some of the best footballers in the country. You know, Rooney was there, Kane was just coming through at his peak, Dele Alli, some really good players, Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, and they couldn't hit a 10-yard pass, you know, crippled with nerves and whatever was going on there. And that was his last game with England, and it was, you know, no one argued with that he had to go then. And I would argue, Gareth Southgate brought back pride in England, and he brought back belief, and he got the players playing without fear and nervousness. I'm not saying it's Roy's fault that they were like that, but he certainly didn't change the way England were perceived or the way they played. So I think he was the last of that era where players didn't want to play for England, frankly. You know, you went through. I know players going back to the 2000s who would rather just have an international break off. You know, top players who were quite happy not to get called up or to be able to have an injury that meant they missed out because they were terrified playing for England. The pressure, the expectation, and you know, as Andrew alluded to, the build them up and knock them down sort of mentality that a lot of people in this country have. So I think, you know, there needed to be a reboot. And I think Southgate was the man who did that, and you can see the product, you know. And we can argue all night about how good Southgate is as a manager. I know Sam's got a different view from me, for example, but you can't argue with his track record of a World Cup semi-final, a European Championship final, which went to penalties and was, you know, in their hands at one point, and then another reasonably successful World Cup campaign. You know, you'd look at this summer with the players they've got.
Favourites?
Amongst the favourites, yeah. I mean, with France, possibly Spain, Portugal. But you know, Germany wouldn't be up there, Italy wouldn't be up there, and you know, so it's a good setup with England at the moment. But it was Southgate who set that up really and rebooted the mentality and the style. So, but all credit to Roy. He's had a fantastic career, like you say, and it is time to enjoy his retirement, I think, you know. And we'll see what Oliver Glasner brings to Palace. You know, he's got 2 weeks now. I think they've got is it Burnley at the weekend? They've got a home game, haven't they? Burnley. Yeah. Then Tottenham away. So he was watching Tottenham the other day.
They should stay up, shouldn't they, Palace?
I
know they like to change their manager around this sort of time, Palace, and you know, we know Steve Parish is a big Palace fan. It's all, they've got away with it, but they need to back this guy Glasner now over a long-term period and not be like Sunderland, who just sacked Michael Beale after 12 games. I mean, I know what's the game coming to, but I mean 12 games, whether he's a good fit or not. And why appoint him if you think you can't give him longer than 12 games? I mean, the relegation, we've got Luton. Is it Luton against Liverpool this week? Or City?
Yes, at Anfield. Yes.
Okay. I mean,
and Brentford are still in the mix. You know, they've got City.
Yeah, well, they won at City last. Can't see that happening again.
No. I was at the reverse fixture just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, City went to the Brentford Community Stadium and they won in the end. But Brentford went ahead, you know, and they caught them with a sucker punch. It was a Neil Maupay goal where Ivan Toney just come back into the team, and it was a long ball up from the keeper. Toney jumped, 2 defenders went with him, and the ball just ran on for Maupay. And Pep said afterwards, you know, we knew that was one of their plays, that they'll get the big ball up to Tony, and then it'll be one of the other forwards or one of the midfielders running off him. He said, we've got to be better next time round. So, Pep and Pep was really playing up the fact that Brentford are a tough team to play against. They are a difficult side to beat. They're well organised. Thomas Frank, when we're talking about bigger jobs in football, Thomas Frank should be in that conversation because he's done a fantastic job at Brentford. They are difficult. So City have got them back at the Etihad, and it won't be an easy one. They beat them twice last year, but you'd expect City to win that. And then again, that they go back above Arsenal if they win, don't they? So that then closes the gap a little bit more on Liverpool. Then they play tomorrow. So, I think that 3-horse race is going right to the end of the season. It is 3 now, isn't it? There's no Villa, Spurs, United. No one else is going to get into that conversation for the top 3. So that, it could go all the way to the end of the season. And I think, in the end, you look at who can handle the pressure. We know City have got that. And Arsenal fell away, didn't they? And I think, most Arsenal fans would agree, young, inexperienced players probably, and injuries started to sort of tell towards the end. They went into the season, it went into April 7 points ahead at one point, 5 points ahead, and it was all over by the end of the month, wasn't it? So, they can, maybe they've learnt from that, maybe their players have learnt from that, but that would be the fear, I think, for Arsenal, that they have one of those sort of collapses towards the end of the season, especially if they're doing well in the Champions League. City have depth in the squad as well, so injuries can play a part. Liverpool, could be competing on 4 fronts or 3 fronts by then, and again, injuries start to play a part. They have got experience of the running, some of them, haven't they? Some of the older players got that experience. So I think it'd be really fascinating.
Arsenal have a run of games towards the end. It could even sort of be a big end to March for them. They've got Porto, the second leg of Champions League, Porto home. They've got Chelsea at home straight after that. Then they go away to Manchester City on the last day of March, which could be a title decider. They got hammered there last season. I remember covering that match for you guys, and it could be. And then they got Brighton away after that, and Brighton are a testing team
always
for anyone, especially at home. So
and Tottenham away after that.
Have they? Well, I'm just checking my fixture.
So
well, that's
the thing is,
Tottenham normally win at home, don't they?
Yeah, last year was the first year for a while, but they would look at that run and say, well, you can look at it 2 ways. That's a really tough run, but if they get through that, if they start picking up results in that, and they're playing in confidence, then you've got to run into the end, haven't you? And the tails are up, the confidence is up, and happy days. So they may look like a really difficult run of fixtures, but actually, if they keep coming through them,
keeps it in their hands in that respect, doesn't it? 'Cause if they can win, they outplayed City when they beat them at home. They've outplayed Liverpool twice, drew once, and beat them at home, Arsenal. So. Yeah, they have improved this season as well as they did last season. I agree with you that there's a question mark to see whether they can sustain it or not.
In the comments, when I asked for the top 4, most people are saying Arsenal to win the league. So
really?
There is a belief around that. Maybe it's the Rice effect. Maybe it's the amount of goals Arsenal are scoring as well. So maybe there's Arsenal have the momentum. Maybe that Liverpool with injuries, City with slightly not looking the City of last season. Maybe there's a momentum shift. Some have even thrown Villa in to finish 4th, who they've ended that drought with a win at Fulham. So Watkins is just unstoppable this season. And at the bottom last night as well, I think Everton might be in quite a bit of trouble as well. So there's a lot to play for in the Premier League. It's quite exciting to have the drop and the title race all in the mix.
Yeah, it's nice to see a couple of predictions for Arsenal in the league, because I think there's this sort of acceptance among the media that this springtime relentlessness that City have, that's going to happen. City are going to win every game between January and the end of the season, and then it's wrapped up. But I think that draw
forever, can it?
No, it can't. I think that draw against Chelsea gives Arteta and Klopp a bit of hope. Obviously, Klopp knows well what it's like to try to keep pace with Manchester City. I think for Arsenal, obviously Arteta tried to strengthen the squad in the summer, because at the end of the day the wheels came off because of injuries. I think it was that Liverpool game, the 2-2, then it was a 2-2 against West Ham, 3-3 against Southampton, and then the end of the month, I think it was the month of April, where everything just collapsed with that 4-1 against City. And obviously Arteta tried to combat that with the signing of Timber in the summer. Such an unfortunate injury that he got, because he looked like a world beater. So Arsenal are I think Arsenal are very much on course to pick up considerable amount of points, but I think if injuries come for them, they will crumble, because as you said, Liverpool have had vast amount of injuries, but they have that experience, they have that squad depth to call upon players. Arsenal, I have my reservations about if they do get some key individuals like Saliba, Gabriel, Odegaard. If those guys get injured, I think Arsenal will struggle to get over the line.
Yeah, I think any team would struggle if they lost sort of.
True.
Odegaard.
I just think City and Liverpool, given the experience and past title races and the squad depth, I think they're more well equipped to deal with.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Arsenal are the third favourite out of those sort of. But that's not a bad place to be. I mean, last season they were emerging as favourites, even though everyone said, "Oh, City's going to catch you, City's going to catch you," and they did. And they sort of crumbled under that pressure, perhaps. But this time, no one's sort of saying Arsenal are favourites. No one's saying it's yours to lose, that horrible sort of football phrase. But
And don't forget City, they've got to go to Liverpool, I think, isn't it? They've got United, which is always, United coming back at a bad time for City.
Yeah.
And they've got to go to Tottenham. And, I know they won the Cup the other day, but they'd gone 5 matches without a goal even at the Tottenham Stadium. So, I mean, City have still got some tough games coming up. They're not guaranteed to just steamroller their way through to the end of the season with wins.
Yeah.
These are really competitive, really tough games, and even if they get through them, they'll be draining games, because they're not going to walk through any of those games. I would have thought.
I think March will be a decisive one. Obviously, if Liverpool versus City at Anfield, and then of course City versus Arsenal at the Etihad. I think that's on the 28th.
Yeah, I mean, City, I'm just looking here. City got a hell of a run. They've got Liverpool away, Brighton away, Arsenal at home, and then Villa at home, Palace away. That's a sort of little testing run of games. I mean, they could win all of them 5-0, of course, but
well, it's City against Spurs at Tottenham's end. That's an interesting one, because obviously before Nake's goal in the FA Cup, I think it was over 100 shots in 9 hours of football before they scored a goal.
That was the 102nd.
Again, as journalists, it's very difficult to sit there and try to break the bones of that and figure out why. I just think it's a complete. It's not like a fluke, but there's just obviously something wrong with City playing in North London.
Yeah, I remember covering one of those Tottenham wins against City in a year or two ago, and saying to Guardiola afterwards, I'm sure you can look it up in the archives of the Man City press conference, what is it? You can beat everyone, but you come to Tottenham, you just can't do it. And he said, because maybe it's the journey to North London.
It is a pain to get there, actually.
Just teams,
even getting from West London to North London.
Teams have weird grounds. It's like, I'd say Andrew with Anfield. I said, just because after the draw where Arsenal played really well, I said, but there's something about Anfield where Arsenal it's been 12 years since Arsenal won in the league at Anfield. Obviously, it can't be happened this year because we coasted 2-0 last season. Arsenal were cruising and then somehow threw the game away. This season again, took the lead, threw it away again. It's just like some teams just have grounds where it just doesn't work.
Tottenham can beat that one. They went 72 years without winning at Anfield. Until Garth Crooks. There was a game in the 80s, maybe 84, something like that. Garth Crooks scored a winner. And the previous win had been the same year the Titanic went down. So that was one of the longest runs.
They were a good team, Titanic, weren't they?
Yeah, they were brilliant, actually. They beat Liverpool.
No one expected them to go that way.
Have they won there since then?
Yeah, they've won up there a couple of times. Sheringham, Klinsmann. They've had a couple.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's what you say. They're those grounds you just go to and you think, they're not going to win there. We haven't mentioned Man United because, blimey, they're only 3 points, 5 points behind a top 4 place now. And momentum. Højlund's scoring goals, isn't he? I mean, 6 weeks ago, you'd have said, well, he's not really the right man, and they were talking about bringing an experienced number 9.
Højlund or Ten Hag?
No, Højlund.
All right, yeah.
No, I mean, Ten Hag's there for the season, isn't he? I think that's there's no doubt about that. But with Højlund, you're thinking they've spent a lot of money on a young player again, like Anthony. They spent a lot of money, and he hasn't worked out, and Sancho. But Højlund, since he's been scoring goals, you're thinking, okay, he's put the doubters to bed now, hasn't he? Because that's what he's there for. Goals will mask everything, but he also looks like a dangerous player. He looks a player in confidence, and that's got to be good for them coming into the end of the season running, because they can still gate crash that. There's probably 3, at a push 4 teams going for that full spot. 5 might be enough. It's still really in the balance on that UEFA coefficient that English teams may get a 5th entry into the Champions League. We won't know until the latter rounds of this year's competitions, But United could still gate crash the top 4.
Last week on the show, we suggested top 4, and me and Nick both said Man United just because ahead of Tottenham. But just because just get this feeling with Man United that they just find a way to get there, and whether it's by accident or it's just genius, but the introduction of Kobbie Mainoo has really seemed to rejuvenate the whole team. Of like, it's almost like, well, if this 19-20-year-old kid is playing with this confidence, I really should be playing better. And like, Højlund stepped up, Garnacho's been fantastic, Diogo Dalot's been playing like a man possessed in defence, Varane's come back and has solidified his place where Ten Hag wasn't sure on playing him. So seems to all be falling in line coincidentally in the run-in for Man United, whilst maybe Tottenham are coming under a bit of like back to normality, where Postecoglou's struggling to maybe get the consistency, whereas Man United, like you say, are hitting form, but it is against maybe winnable teams. So maybe, like you say, when they go to Man City, is Højlund stepping up? Is Mainoo able to deal with that level? But I think Man United look on course for fourth as well.
Yeah,
a long way to go still. But
Yeah.
I stick with that, and I think with Højlund and Garnacho, Ten Hag he's got younger players who sort of believe in him and are playing for him, unlike those sort of slightly more cynical older players and big starry sort of players that Man United like to have, which is similar to the way Arteta's built that squad at Arsenal with young players who not only believe in themselves but in each other, but they believe in him and what he's telling them.
And a generation, a few years before that, Pochettino did the same at Spurs.
Yeah.
He bombed out the older guard, brought through Kane, Dele Alli, Eriksen, younger players who are sort of hungry, wanted to play in that system. And I think every manager coming in, if the club is in a bit of a state, needs to do that. And Pochettino did it, Arteta's done it. He got rid of Aubameyang and Ozil, didn't he? And I think the problem, say, for Pochettino to try and do that at Chelsea is it's very difficult. He hasn't got those older players as such that he can bomb out. I mean, they've spent a fortune. They've spent a billion anyway.
Very young players as well.
There's too many young players that he's got to knit together. But that's why I say I think sooner or later he will get it right. I mean, I would, go out on a limb and say the next season Chelsea ought to be in the conversation for certainly top four, but be pushing it. Maybe they still need a striker. Victor Osimhen or someone who's a guarantee, or Tony. Guaranteed number 9, proven Premier League number 9 goal scorer. If they got that player, then they'd be a force to reckon with, and they've got those young players knitting together. So I think the picture for Chelsea can be quite bright. And then that makes it, puts the pressure on all those other teams, doesn't it? The ones knocking on the door at the moment, and that would be, like you say, Man United, Villa, Spurs, Newcastle. Yeah. They're at the moment, they're not threatened by Chelsea because Chelsea is struggling so much. But next year they'll be in the mix, I think.
I think going back to United, they're in a very good state at the moment, because I think post the Ferguson dynasty, I think United have always had top class managers and they've always had top class players and young prodigies, but it's always been the toxic nature that's been going on behind the scenes, and as we all know, if it's not good upstairs, it's not going to be good downstairs. So I think now that they have Dave Brailsford and Ratcliffe coming along, like the fact that for the first time under the Glazer ownership they've actually had secure funding being put into the club, so there's a clear vision there. I think that gives the players encouragement, because it's almost like, okay, we're being looked after here, everything's fine upstairs, so we can do our thing on the pitch. And again, I think it gives Eric Ten Hag further encouragement. And I feel bad for Eric, because he came into United and, as you said, it was a complete mess. He had to deal with the Ronaldo situation. He had to deal with the Sancho situation, a bit with Rashford as well, and there was stuff with Anthony. I mean, that can't be easy. And as we know, covering United week in, week out, there's no other hotter seat in the Premier League. When you step in front of the media as United manager, everyone's coming from you. Everyone wants to put pressure on you. So I think he's done well, and I think under this new ownership model, he deserves a chance next season to stay on.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of people are talking about it as if he's been a failure. Last season, he got third place and a cup, not to be sniffed at by any measure, and another cup final, which lost to City, so no disgrace there. So given all the problems they've had, that's not a bad season. And it's just this year where the problems have been bigger, perhaps on and off the pitch with players. And it's just not knitted together, but it is starting to, isn't it? I know we were looking at sort of, goal difference. I've always said this, goal difference, usually you can tell any point, it's a snapshot in the middle of the season, who's going to finish where. And usually the goal difference of the top 4 or 5 is in order of, in descending order. And at the bottom as well. And United was sort of outliers last year. Their goal difference was much smaller than teams finishing 4th, 5th, 6th.
It's only +1 now.
And it's still only +1 now. So, what it suggests is they're getting through games, winning by 1 goal or just about getting through games. they're not blitzing any sides. Like, even Newcastle will have those massive wins and get a big goal difference, or Villa have the odd big win. But United don't do that. This United, they do the job. They're probably some scruffy wins and some sort of hard fought scrappy wins, but they're getting there, and that's it's not to be underestimated. It's not the most glamorous quality in a club, especially a club like United with their tradition of fantastic, sexy football and the greatest footballers of their generation playing for them year after year. Ever since I was a kid, Georgie Best and Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law and all that lot. It may not be that sort of sexy football and sexy names necessarily there, but they're doing a job, and that's probably what they need to do until they get, as you say, into a position where they can, Ratcliffe can start putting proper money in and saying, right, here's the fresh start. We'll build a team from here, and then they can start attracting world-class players. And I don't think we're going out on a limb suggesting that maybe Casemiro will be one of the big names to go.
I mean that's another problem. Like recruitment's just been all over the place. Obviously, Casemiro is an exceptional player, but Real Madrid got an absolute bargain selling him for that much money. And the wages he was on, he was always going to stagnate and he was always going to deteriorate.
Well, he had a good,
he had a really good first season. But
now
he reminds me a lot of Fabinho last season. It just looks like his legs are gone. He doesn't have it anymore, and I could see him potentially being shipped away in the summer. Definitely.
Based on Jerry's goal difference theory, which is a very good way to sort of track whether teams are like to go up or go down. Manchester City need to win by 5 in their game in hand to catch up with Arsenal. And as it stands, Arsenal got the best goal difference, then Liverpool, then City, and then out the top 4, 5, 6 is Aston Villa on plus 19, 5 goals ahead of Tottenham. As you say, Man United only 1.
Yeah, so that's a logical sequence. Apart from Arsenal being slightly different, but that could change tonight because City have a game in hand.
So they've got to win by 5 to catch up with the Arsenal, and it means Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield United all going down.
Yeah,
they're the bottom 3 as it stands.
I do like to say that I really have enjoyed Luton. Like at the start of the season, I have to say I was a bit like.
You haven't been there.
I have been to Kenilworth Road actually, and it was an interesting experience. I'm not diminishing it, but it's just a very different ground to really most football grounds in the country. But the way Rob Edwards and that team have embraced the Premier League, and not just embraced it, but really brought their own brand of football, which is kind of half physical, half quick counter-attacking football, with Barkley and Andros Townsend having like a dad's army kind of rejuvenation, and then you got Adebayo making his name, Carlton Morris, obviously the story of Tom Lockyer was having a great season until his unfortunate incident, which he's now glad to see he's okay, but I do hope they stay up.
I really enjoy my visits there. It's a proper throwback ground, isn't it? Atmosphere. And
nothing like another Premier League ground or any other. It's bizarre that they can have gone from non-league to the top flight and actually be sort of almost holding their own in big games.
And like you say, the dad's army. Ross Barkley's just been a revelation since he started playing, and Townsend's come in. I've got a lot of time for Andros Townsend. And delighted he's getting regular football again. And they might just have enough about them. And like you say, Sheffield United look doomed, unfortunately. Burnley probably are as well. And then Everton and the FFP and the points deductions. I suspect that's not going away, and it might even get worse. Forest might get drawn in.
Well, it looks. Do you see that Sam Cunningham in the eye today? That Forest are definitely going to get deducted points, and Sam's an experienced, good eye for a story journalist, and if he's right, which. I'm sure he's not the first person perhaps to say that they're going to get deducted points, but if they get deducted points, Forest, they're only 4 above Luton at the moment. Well,
so if it's minus 10,
then they're going to struggle. So they're not exactly sort of putting up trees, great football cliche, but they're going to struggle to catch up the points again. Everton are trying to challenge their point deduction. They seem to be sort of talking as if they're going to do that, but they're going to get hit with another.
It's a mess.
It's so undetermined that it kind of detracts from the beauty of the relegation race, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Obviously Everton have a second impending charge that we still don't know what's going to happen with that, so I think a lot will be, we don't want to be coming into the stage of the season where there's 4 games left and these hearings still haven't been sorted out. I think the quicker it gets done, the better.
Manchester City get deducted 48 points. They could be in the relegation zone too.
What you really hope is next season there's no more. Because it does. Like you say, whether it's the beauty of the relegation race or the ugliness of it, it should be what you can see on paper. It should be the best team or the worst team, and you shouldn't have this. Well, they're going to get relegated, but they might be saved because another team that's finished above them gets deducted 10 points, and that might save so and so. That's not really how football should work.
No.
But at the same time, the rules are the rules, and if they've broken the rules, they need and they know what the punishments are. They've got to take the punishments.
Yeah, and they keep saying we only broke the rules a little bit. Or,
You know.
It's I don't know if that's an actual argument, but that seems to be some of their arguments. But the rules is the rules,
so,
and we know financial fair play is a very important factor.
I think people just want to resolve quickly. Like obviously Everton and Forest have been cooperative. They've been cooperating with the Premier League and they've admitted to the charges. Obviously City's has gone on longer because they refuse everything. They said they've irrefutable evidence that proves their case. But yeah, it's just about getting it sorted quickly because as Jerry said, it's just making everyone a little bit confused. It's like, who's going to go down, who's not going to go down. And I just think the longer it goes on, we don't want to be 2-3 games left in the season and them hearings still haven't happened. So
I'll tell you what, I think this has been my favourite of the Haters Live football TV chats we've had so far. It's been really Jerry, great to have you on board.
Well, it's been my favourite one to be on so far.
I got one more. I got one question.
Let's go out with the most important people here, and this is the audience and our subscribers. Yeah.
I asked her some questions. If you want to ask your question, get them in now, obviously, before we wrap up and go. But there's a first one here, which is Nemanja saying, who do you think is the best fit for Arsenal's attack next season? So, off the top of my head, if you had to pick Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, or Victor Osimhen, and you could bring in put up front for Arsenal, who would you pick?
I think Ollie Watkins would stand out of those
well,
three as a sort of good fit for Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think Tony's obviously proven goal scorer. I mean, the problem with Gabriel Jesus, he's not necessarily an out-and-out goal scorer, and he's very rarely fit. But, I mean, they can't afford to get rid of him because he brings so much to that squad, even when he's not playing, just in training and just around. So out of those three, Sam, money permitting, I think Watkins would be a good fit. And I think he's an Arsenal fan, isn't he, Watkins? Or
Yeah,
he says he was.
I
mean, well, I saw one of our comments saying that Mbappe used to walk around in Chelsea kit when he was a kid.
He's one of those. He swapped Chelsea this week, City next week, Real Madrid next week.
Yeah.
So who knows?
There is another striker who may be available in the summer.
Harry Kane.
Big Arsenal fan, Harry Kane.
Oh yeah,
You know,
one of our
is he
own.
going to come back?
The poor guy, if he wants to win trophies, he might have to come to Arsenal.
Well, he could. I
I mean, that's a whole other comment. It's a story. Isn't
How
it?
would Arsenal fans feel if he joined?
I would love it.
But with a curse?
Well, that's true. That's another scene.
We're bigger than the curse.
Risky.
We're bigger than the curse.
Arsenal are rewriting history at the moment,
Yeah.
Jerry. I mean, that is a remarkable story that Harry Kane's gone to Bayern Munich to win trophies, and Granit
feel
Xhaka has been bombed out of Arsenal. He's playing for those losers, Leverkusen, the losers, and he's been one of the key players in getting them to win the title.
I feel very sorry for Kane. But yeah, there's another.
wouldn't leave
There's a
Bayern
bit
Munich,
of.
Who knows? Who knows?
I'm asking you. I'd say he won't. Anyway.
There's a bit of chat on West Ham, so just thought may as well bring up Moyes because there's
yeah.
a report on Sammy Mockbell even released last night how West Ham are reportedly planning a list of replacements, which obviously isn't great to hear. So maybe just a quick on Moyes going to go?
Yeah, it won't be now. It'll be in the summer, won't it?
Yeah,
at the earliest, and it probably wouldn't be a surprise, you know, given
they're
the way
safe top half, aren't they?
Yeah,
so
they're not going down.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a change there. Sammy knows his stuff, you know. Sammy's a good reporter.
I remember speaking to David Moyes about Roy Hodgson. He said one of the reasons he loves Roy Hodgson so much, he makes him not the oldest manager in the Premier League. And now Roy's gone. That's fallen down to David Moyes, who's I think he's only about 60, isn't he? 60, 61. But yeah, he's been
done a great job. Though.
Yeah, and for me, he's overachieved at West Ham. And I know they say it's boring football, but
they're still in Europa League, though.
I mean, as a football fan, I've always rather seen winning football than exciting football. If you can get both, that's the magic recipe, isn't it? But it's very rare you do get both. And
I think that's exactly
but
why.
It does feel like you know the writing's on the wall for Moyes, doesn't it?
Which I think is harsh because obviously he's won a European trophy with him. They're still in the top half of the league, but obviously, as he said in his press conference, West Ham fans clearly think there's someone better than me who can bring him on. But I think when we go back to Hodgson, I think Palace would have had more than enough to stay in the division. But I think Steve Parish, along with the American owners, Josh Harris, David Blitzer, and John Textor, they were like, okay, David Glasner,
good
who's
Palace knowledge, by the way, ownership.
Yeah. I think with the Glasner deal, obviously with West Ham looking at managers, I think Forest were in for him as well before they went and got Nuno. So yeah, I think Palace had to act quickly with him because he was definitely one on their shortlist. But I just think West Ham are, obviously they feel slightly more ambitious, but I think Moyes has done a fantastic job, and I think he's getting unfair scrutiny at the moment.
Who would replace him?
Who'd replace him?
I think Potter's a shout, isn't
Potter
he?
and
Definitely
Steve
a shout,
Cooper,
yeah.
I think, are up there for both.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last two questions I'll go through. Simon, I'll do quick fire. If you had to pick a winner now of the game at the Etihad, Man City or Arsenal?
Man City for me.
Draw.
Man City.
I think draw as well, actually. RDR also says, how far do you think Arsenal go in the Champions League?
Well, it sort of depends. I think they'll definitely get. I think they'll sail through against Porto.
Depends on the draw, yeah.
And then it sort of partly depends on the draw. They need a couple of big clubs to draw each other in the quarterfinals to get to the semi-finals. And then, as Jerry said, it's a cup competition.
You never know.
You never know.
Arsenal City final, maybe. Be
Well,
good for
that'd
the
be
English
good.
coefficient.
Top 5, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
And the finals at Wembley this year as well, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
But,
Bring it
we'll
all
be
back
there.
to London.
I think for Arsenal in particular, with the knockout stages, it'll be those away ties in first or second leg, whichever it is. That'll be the true test for Arsenal, because I think at the Emirates, I was speaking to you about this on the way here, Emirates just seems so rejuvenated under Arteta. Just seems like a completely different venue as opposed to when it was in the latter stages of Wenger and then the start of the Arteta era. So I think at the Emirates they're fine. They've enough atmosphere there to roll teams over, but it's those away games where it'll come.
And now they don't have the double away goals count double rule. Those
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
games, I was reading an article recently, no longer that important whether you play first home or away.
No.
Obviously you want to have the crowd behind you in the second leg if you're trying to push for a late win, don't you? But the away goal rule
null and
leg
void.
change is null. What do you think then, just to finish this off?
I think Arsenal, I've said, I think can get semi-finals because I think they can, as a team on their best 11, obviously injuries permitting, they can go toe-to-toe with most teams because I don't think the standard in the Champions League is that great. Bellingham's injured for Real Madrid as well, so it depends on his availability for them. But yeah, I think it's hard to stop Man City. But I think Arsenal can have a good run. I just hope that it doesn't derail both competitions and they end up with nothing, because I think Arteta needs a big trophy soon as well, really, for his own resume.
Yeah. I think that's wise words, Sam,
Thank you.
as I fully would expect from you, and you, Andrew, and you, Jerry, and for you all you guys there in the comments. I've never seen so many comments in the live stream here, so it makes it feel like it's a worthwhile exercise for all of us. And as I said at the beginning, if you want to go and watch it again, you can rewind to see what wise words we've been coming up with on the Hayters TV live show today. This is soon going to be for members only, because the Hayters TV membership offering is coming up very, very soon. There's going to be 3 tiers, and the live shows like this are going to be in our top tier, when you're part of the Hayters TV first team, which we like to think we are all part of the Hayters TV first team. I hope you guys who joined in and watching and commenting can be part of that membership scheme too. Keep an eye on the community page, and all the details will be coming up. Just leads me to my great friend here, Jerry Cox, to just end the stream for us, and we'll see you next week, guys.